It's your one-stop shop for great wrestling. It's the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Ray Russell brings a host of great shows right to your device. There's the Wrestling Memory Grenade, Regional Wrasslin, the Wrestling Stoop with Bob Roop, the Amazing Puro Academy Show, Retro Wrestling Review with Gene Jackson, Dave Dynasty's long-running hit, Wrestling Nostalgia, Monday Warfare, Raw vs. Nitro, the hilarious Other Ship podcast, and a whole lot more. Great shows and great guests, but where do you find all this stuff? Really simple. Try logging on to WrestleCopia.com. As I like to say, it's your one-stop shop for great wrestling memories. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Outdated Wrestling Hour. We're going way down to Memphis again with our good friend, Mayor John McCall, wrapping up a fantastic podcast career and a lot of other news, too. You know, I've been to Memphis, you young punks. I remember going down to Button's Soul Food Kitchen. Anybody remember that? Memphis Way Buttons? Oh, fried chicken, fried okra, mashed potatoes. Oh, the corn. And oh, my favorite, peach cobbler. It's the Outdated Wrestling Hour. I'd walk to Memphis for some of that peach cobbler. Hey everybody, it's Bob Smith. You might remember me from the old days with PWI, and this is the Outdated Wrestling Hour podcast. How you doing? We got a really special guest and a good friend of ours, Mayor John McCall, from his own particularly popular podcast. We're going to go back to Memphis, talk about the fate of his particular show right now, and bring on Joe Puccio, our co-host, for a look at Memphis wrestling from not all that long ago and its biggest star. So why don't you hang on for a second? We will be right back in just a second or two after a quick, brief word. Hang on. No, stay right there. Where are you going? Get your hands off that cell phone. I just hope I don't end up talking like this, Joe. Or should I say, how are you, Andy? What's Andy?
Andy Kaufman.
Oh, okay. Perfect for today's show.
Yeah, exactly.
My name is Bob Smith, and welcome to the Outdated Wrestling Hour podcast, co-hosted by Joe Puccio of Long Island. Good to see you.
Good to see you, as always.
We were just talking about our personal stuff. The reason I made the funny voice is it looks like I may miss some time with some oral surgery. I don't like talking about this stuff in public, but I just want to explain there may be a situation during the early spring where we do a couple best of shows, maybe with a new intro on top of it. We'll bring in some old interviews that you may never heard before, but I'm just bracing for everything. I've been recording podcasts like a demon, trying to get caught up and get ahead of this thing. But as it turns out, I'm finding out that the surgery is going to be much more advanced and involved than I thought it was going to be. But I'm happy that I'm going to get it. After it's done, this whole problem I have will be over. And I want to emphasize, don't send me thoughts and prayers. Send your thoughts and prayers to sick babies and things like that. I'm going to be fine. It's not that this is an elective surgery. It's just something that needs to be done.
Right.
You know, to prevent problems in the future. These things happen. Thankful to find the surgeon that I did, and everything's going to be fine. I'm just going to be sore for a long time this year. It's going to be, I got to really, really swallow hard in 2026 because I'm going to be in and out of things. I'm telling you.
Hey, you know, like we were just talking about, you get it done, it's over with. The faster you get it done, the faster we can move on from it. And then you got the podcast
but I am pledging to my listeners, I'm going to try not to miss an episode.
Right.
What I'll do is I'll go way back in the archives and maybe dig up some interviews that a lot of people may have never heard before because the show was new back then.
Yep.
And I got some great wrestling stars and wrestling people from those early days. So we'll work on that. Anyway, today's show, it's a special tribute to my friend Mayor John McCall, who has decided, Joe, to pretty much leave the podcast business. And he's leaving the podcast business with his Wrestling Talk with Mayor McCall podcast because he's done what he wanted to do. The last few weeks of his show are going to be stellar. He's got everybody from Jerry Lawler to all the greats of Memphis wrestling week by week by week. When he got up to a certain stage of great Memphis wrestlers, he's decided that's it. This is all I wanted to do with the podcast, is educate people on Memphis. So as a tribute both to him and his show, I figured we'll start this one by looking back at the career, just for a few minutes here, of Jerry Lawler, because you know what? Memphis has never created a wrestler more popular who drew more money. I put it to you. I know about Hogan and all these other people that drew big money and San Martino. Lawler, for the longest period of time, now, the Mid-South Coliseum didn't hold as much as other venues did. He was a draw all by himself. He was literally the star attraction for decades. And to me, that puts him in top 5 of best drawing wrestlers of all time in America. What do you think?
I would agree. Lawler is somebody that probably doesn't get I don't know. I won't want to say he doesn't get his due because he certainly does. He's somebody that, granted, I wasn't watching the Memphis stuff as it happened. This was a tiny bit before my time, before I started watching it. But I've certainly started watching Lawler and all the glory years, so to speak, of him on videotape, the wonder of VHS and VH tape. And I have all those videotapes. I used to get so much Memphis stuff. He really is one of the all-time greats, one of the all-time great drawers, and the heat and just the adoration that he was able to generate was pretty off the charts.
When I went to visit Jerry twice. Once was the week in 1991 where I spent the whole day touring the USWA back then. And then 2-3 years later, I'm opening for Coco Taylor at B.B. King's Blues Club. And I went and saw him at the studio, TV studio, Channel 5. And I invited him to come and see the show. But you know what? He couldn't do things like that. He'd be mobbed.
Right.
Just to walk into a place like that without security and stuff like that. And I know that when I spent time with him, like he showed me the Memphis ballpark. We went to various places, went to get some soul food. We did all kinds of fun stuff the week I was there. And the thing was, everywhere he went. Like when he went to come and pick me up at my hotel that I was at, I heard people screaming in the lobby, "Wow!" He was like the Beatles. He was that popular in Memphis because you got to remember, not only did he do a wrestling show on Sunday mornings, he did a Memphis news show, Memphis Entertainment News. They would do, segments on Honey. They'd have wrestler guests, but they would also do things like the fairs in town and stuff like that. It was like a public affairs show hosted by Jerry Lawler.
That's great.
So as a tribute to both Mayor McCall and Jerry, I'm going to just take a look real quickly back at many of Jerry's best moments in my eyes. And this is no means complete, but they're the ones I remember best. When he beat Kurt Hennig in May 1988 Memphis for the AWA belt with Jackie Fargo as a special referee.
Yep.
One of those rare moments where he was getting national headlines for the first time. Do you remember that match?
I do remember it because obviously I was watching wrestling already, from several years by that point, and I do remember it. I feel like that aired on television somewhere in New York because I do remember watching that on a syndicated show. I'm not exactly sure how I saw that, but I do remember I have a distinct memory of seeing that.
It was all over ESPN for a long time.
Yeah.
And I remember Bill Apter interviewing both of them after. I was with the magazines at that point. Yeah, that was the first year I was with the magazines. During that AWA stint, he also won the World Tag Team belts for the AWA with Bill Dundee.
Right.
You're my friend, you're my foe, one of those deals. But, sadly, Vern Gagne being Vern Gagne in those years, reportedly, allegedly, Lawler got stripped of the belt in January 89. That wasn't long after he won the title. For failing to appear in cards was the public reason. I think the real reason was that he never got paid for Super Clash and a lot of other stuff. And he said, to hell with it. That's what I think.
When you say this is what you think, there have been reports that he never got paid for that?
Oh, he's talked about it openly.
Oh, he has talked about that.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't aware of that. Okay.
He was missing AWA book title defenses because he was waiting to get paid.
Oh, geez.
And allegedly, I'll say it again, this is all alleged, a lot of other people didn't get paid either.
Right, right.
So, if you saw the Super Clash card and saw the crowd and then got the pay-per-view figures, I don't know if anybody made money on that thing.
That Superclass, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was the show where they unified the belt.
Oh, Super Clash 3, yes, the Kerry Von Erich. I was gonna talk about that. Was December '88.
Yes.
Lawler defeated Kerry Von Erich on a blood stoppage.
Oh, okay. I do remember
co
it was him and Von Erich. That was the title unification, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the USA billed it as the Unified World Championship because he concurrently held the World Class and AWA World titles as
Right.
if the World Class was a world title, which nobody was counting at that point, but what the heck.
Yeah, yeah.
Lawler got stripped, and even after he got stripped, he was running around calling himself the Unified Champion, even after the AWA told him to skedaddle.
Mhm.
So, it was a mess, the usual mess. But he
Yeah,
never
right.
lost the belt, and he had his own unified belt in Memphis, so it all worked out happily for, the Jarrett crew and all those other people. But, those are the memories I have most. But you know what? One of my favorite memories of him debuting at Madison Square Garden, beating Tito Santana, and I can't remember the specific year. It was when they were in a real down period. I think there were like 8,000 people at MSG or something when, it must have been around 92, 91, 92. Really bad attendance there at that point. And Lawler came out and started insulting the crowd, and he had him in the palm of his hand. All he had to do was insult the crowd, a la Andy Kaufman.
Mhm.
Boom, jackpot. Hated. And it was one of the few matches at MSG I can recall where they brawled into the crowd a little bit. You didn't usually see that in New York.
Was this a televised match?
No, no,
Or-
no, no. It was a house show.
This was just a house show, and that's where he made his debut. Okay, got it.
Well, his New York debut.
Right, his New York debut, yeah.
Yeah, it was a great match too. He held the ropes to get the pin.
How many wrestlers in history have been better than Lawler at getting heat just from his mouth? I mean, just from getting out in that ring and just talking trash and just getting under people's skin. I mean, he's top tier, right? You got to say. I mean, there's not many people better at him at that skill.
Top 5 great talker of all time.
Absolutely.
He talked people into buying tickets.
He could.
And now, as far as silly stats, he was the USWA champion 28 times, which was preceded by what they called the AWA Southern Heavyweight Championship. He held that 57 times. And he had 29 sanctioned NWA titles, but don't ask me what they were because it was all before my time. Wow. You always had a belt. Always had a belt. Now, PWI awards, since I worked there, I'm going to go down a list of what PWI bestowed upon him. The first one I was there for, 1992, is the feud of the year with him and his tag team partner at the time, Jeff Jarrett, against the Memphis Moondogs.
Okay.
And let me tell you, if you ever saw those matches on video, you get a tape sometime and watch what the Moondogs did to jobbers on TV. They literally beat the bejesus out of these guys all the time. And they just look it up. Find Moondogs on old Memphis tapes with their manager, Richard Lee. It's the most violent thing you've ever seen. It was crazy.
I got to check that out for sure.
Yeah. Feud of the year, 1993, when he had moved to the WWE.
Yep.
Versus your man, Bret Hart.
Mr. Hart, of course. Look, that's an incredible feud still to this day. I mean, again, that's another feud that I think because Bret Hart went on to so many great feuds and he became one of the elite workers in the business, and everybody thinks of him and Shawn Michaels and him and his world title run. And not to take anything away from that stuff, it was incredible. But I'm saying that it's almost like that sort of 93, 94, 95 period gets forgotten about. But that was a kick-ass feud. The feud that he had with Lawler and Hart, with the family involved, with I think they had the Kiss My Foot match. Wasn't that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He threw up afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, that was because what I liked about it was funny. It was comical. It made me laugh. It was entertaining. But at the same time, it could get serious, where it got serious with Stu, where he would make fun of Stu. And then, how could you say that about my parents? And it kind of towed the line between comic and serious, and it was just that right sort of sweet spot. And I've always felt that was actually an underrated feud.
Absolutely. Nobody talks about it these days.
Yeah.
They talk about a lot of, they talk about Hart Bulldog, Hart,
Yep. Exactly.
Shawn Michaels, whatever. They don't talk about that.
No.
And that preceded a lot of that stuff. He was voted in PWI the most inspirational wrestler of the year in 1988 and 2012. I think 2012 was probably the Heart Attack, I think. 88, I cannot remember. Oh,
yeah,
I know.
What was 88?
88, he was lauded for defending his belt in about 17 different organizations. He took the AWA belt, the Continental, this one, up in Pennsylvania. He would defend it here, there, and everywhere. So we would tabulate the results, and, the readers read the PWI Weekly we used to
Right.
You'd see him 5 times in 5 different areas.
Hmm.
No champion was doing that. They were all company champions, as he would call it. So I think the fans picked up on that and voted him that. What else we got here? He was ranked number 7 in the top 500 singles wrestlers in the PWI 500 in 1992. I wrote that one. Ranked number 23 of the top 500 singles wrestlers in 2003 in PWI, something called the PWI Years issue. And he was ranked number 56 of the top 100 tag teams of the PWI Years with Bill Dundee in 2003. So those are just, people look back, and I wasn't with the magazines in 2003. He's a member of the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame and the Observer Hall of Fame. All right, here's my favorite Lawler moments. The feud with Bret Hart, the Moondogs feud. You had to see it to believe it. The empty arena match against Terry Funk. The greatest national angle of all time when there were no national angles. What was it, Joe?
Andy Kaufman.
You got it. Nothing like it. His son, Brian Christopher, became a great wrestler in his own right.
He did, absolutely.
The announcing team with Jim Ross. Come on. Legendary duo.
It is. That announcing team is considered to be, by a certain generation, they would probably consider Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler to be the greatest commentating team. And that is certainly the glory years of the WWE for a certain amount of time. It was great. They had great chemistry. They played off of each other very, very well. And obviously being good friends, I'm sure that had something to do with it. But yeah, you're right. He was really a great commentator where we've talked about this in the past. It's not a given to be somebody that's a great talker in the ring, to be someone who can generate heat. That doesn't necessarily translate to being a good color commentator. Off the top of my head, Rowdy Piper. He certainly had some good moments early on in his career. He was a good commentator. But then at some point, he really lost it in the later years in WWF. And that's just one example of a guy that could talk circles about anybody. Lawler was just such a great commentator. So funny. I still prefer Heenan, the comedy. I think Heenan was probably a little bit better, but Lawler's up there.
And my favorite Lawler feuds, Joe LeDuc, Eric Embry, on and off with Bill Dundee, Handsome Jimmy Valiant, Randy Savage, and particularly on and off for years with Eddie Gilbert. The 88, 89, 90 with Gilbert was just great. Yep. I mean, put them together, they were magic. And another memorable match, I don't know if it's on tape anywhere, but I remember seeing an AWA title match long before the big hubbub about it against Nick Bockwinkel. It's just a great match. So that's all I got to say about Jerry. Jerry and I go back, as you know, we spent a little time together, and he's a gentleman, a fine guy. I hope his health is well as we talk about this. You can hear Jerry Lawler coming up soon on the Mary McCall Show. Rare interview for these days. So I really extend the olive branch to other podcasts and say, go listen to it. Go listen to that one. That's probably going to be very special.
That's quite a coup to do that. And I'm really looking forward to listening to that for sure. I think Jerry was supposed to be at a couple of conventions on the East Coast. I don't know if he ever did them. I know there's the Big Chiller convention coming up next month in New Jersey. I know he was at one point advertised for that. I don't know if he's still doing it, obviously with the health issues, and he's, I'm not sure what he's doing, but go see him or meet him or talk to him. I would say, in this case, listen to an interview with him. I would say, go for it.
I would really like to see him one more time too, at least one more time. I really would. I came to Memphis and he just gave me carte blanche. I mean, I saw his house, I saw his Coca-Cola collection, I saw his artwork, mounds of beautiful artwork that he's done. Took me around Memphis, took me to the ballpark, took me to get soul food, did a lot of stuff together the week that I was there. And finally I thought I was kind of overextending my walk. I said, I'm going to go to the drive-in movie tonight. You guys stay here. And, I didn't want to overdo it with him. But then came fight night on the Monday night and I had to leave the next morning. And it was one of the most memorable cards I've ever been at. It's just great. So there you go. Joe is the proprietor of GenerationXWire.com. You're going to hear all about that on our little placard that we put up every week as soon as we're done with this. And Joe, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Hang around for Mayor McCall. Got a lot to say and a lot of good stuff. So what foods are from Memphis that people could eat? Are there any foods called Memphis anything? I tell people to get a drink or whatever. What? I can't think of anything. Get some barbecue.
There you go. It's easy enough.
Get some barbecue. We'll be right back. Attention, Gen Xers. If you'd like to explore the era that appeals to you, look no further than GenerationXWire.com. The generation who grew up with elite in entertainment, music, movies, TV, books, pro wrestling, and more, finally has a one-stop destination for all their Gen X needs. From Aerosmith to Batman to the Killer Bees to the Twilight Zone, there's something for everybody at GenerationXWire.com. You won't find a more eclectic mix of pop culture content than at the leading website that specializes in the greatest generation, GenerationXWire.com. Check it out today. Just about the same time I started podcasting, which is 3 years and 3 months ago. Another fellow was starting right about the same time. And he kind of took the podcast world by storm by having a real Memphis flavored podcast. It's called Wrasslin Talk with Mayor McCall. And I have news about this gentleman, and I haven't spoken to him face to face in a while. I'm so proud to have him back on the show. It's the mayor himself, John McCall. Welcome back.
Bob, what a honor and pleasure to be back on your show. I guess at this point, I'm just making my annual appearance. I've been on the show in 2023, 4, 5, and now 6. So I feel like Michael Jordan. I'm like a four-peater. So thank you for having me back. What a pleasure and honor.
This is 4, yeah, and I think I've been on your show a couple times too. So we're regulars. But anyway, you have had a tumultuous 2025, and you could say whatever you want to say about it, or don't say what you want to say about it. I am not here to pry about your health and everything else, but how you doing now? How are things looking? I'm just glad to be able to talk to you right now, my friend, because I know you had a rough year last year.
Yeah, we definitely had a rough year. Seems like it was one thing after another. Right at the end of 24, our son, passed away tragically. Then last year, my best friend of 20 years passed away. My next door neighbor went through cancer, lost my kidney. Recently, we've lost my wife's dad and her grandfather. Has been put on hospice. Every time we look up, it's something else. But God's good. We're still here, and I guess He keeps His warriors here to handle certain things here. And the people that are gone, He needed them worse than we did. So I guess it's working out for everybody. God's good. I'm here.
Yeah. This is the thing about living a long life. Like I'm way older than you, and it's like when my contemporaries start to go, it really hurts. It's a terrible thing, but like you say, take advantage of the life we got. And I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're feeling a lot better. You are feeling better, right?
I am feeling better, and it always gets my spirits up to get to come talk wrestling with you. So I'm happy today.
Well, I want to talk about your show because you're doing something right now that's kind of unprecedented in terms of podcasting, in that you're kind of looking at making a change in your life, and just explain it all. And if you can, explain all your recent shows and upcoming shows, because you have a list of guests that's off the charts. It's just off the charts. So the floor is yours. I want to point people toward your show because, and tell me any news you have about the future of the show too, if you will.
Okay. Well, I think it's fitting that I would return on here, and as the journey would be coming to an end, because at this point, part of the podcasting career would be over. I'd be retired in some aspects, because we've got to live some, big dreams, Willie and I, and Oxy. We've got to talk to some of the biggest, wrestling legends and stars and icons on the planet that the world's ever seen. So we got to live some dreams, and really, for the most part, I mean, there's a couple here and there from, different circumstances are all we won't get into, but pretty much I've got to interview all the legends that I set out to do. We just had Jerry Lawler at our house 3 weeks ago. I think that was probably the culmination of this whole journey. I mean, he's Mr. Memphis Wrestling. And I think probably every show we've ever had, Jerry Lawler comes up in some form or fashion. You just don't sit around talking, Memphis Wrestling and such without mentioning, Jerry the King Lawler. So, man, I've lived some dreams. I've interviewed Jerry the King Lawler, will be released. I've interviewed Jeff Jarrett, Eric Embry, Bushwhacker Luke, talking sheep herders. Probably my next release will be Precious Paul Ellering. He spent some time in Memphis. Talked to him about some footage of him wrestling the King himself in Jonesboro, Arkansas back in the day. And we all know he was a legendary manager for the Road Warriors. So, yeah, we got some big things coming. Be looking for some big releases soon. But yeah, we got to accomplish a lot of big things and interview, a lot of great legends along the way. And thank you for wonderful people, like yourself that supported us along the way. It wouldn't be possible.
Well, you're speaking in the past tense now because you're looking at wrapping things up, right?
I am.
How many more weeks do you have, more months? Have you come to a decision on how long it's going to be before you sign off?
Yeah, I've got 8 recordings. One more big name that we actually got to interview this week was Ken Shamrock. First ever UFC Hall of Famer, king of the Pancrase, tournament in Japan. Just did a lot of things, high profile things in the WWF, WWE back in the day. And that was Willie's dream. He's really big into shoot wrestling and catch fighting and things like that. So MMA is definitely tied to pro wrestling. So Willie got to live a dream. We interviewed Ken Shamrock. Just be releasing the legends we have recorded and promoting them at that point. And I think, might double dabble with some stuff later on, or, do stuff like this, be guests on other podcasts, or, who knows what the future holds. But I think the Wrestling Talk with Mayor McCall is, the journey is ending down. But man, did we accomplish some big things though. No regrets.
You really did. You interviewed the greats of, particularly. It's so nice because you did your area, the stuff you grew up watching. A lot of the stars that you actually went up to a box office and paid your money to see. You're right. Not everybody gets the opportunity to do something like that. I mean, you feel like I did when I joined PWI. I was like, geez, I get to talk to Roddy Piper on the phone. Are you kidding me? This type of things. It
Right.
it, it kind of blows your mind that how did I end up in this spot, right?
If somebody would have said, hey, when it was first starting, late February, March of 2023, if somebody says, hey, man, like 3 years from now, you're going to sit right across from Jerry Lawler at the desk and do like an hour and 15-minute interview at your house, I would have told them they're probably, freaking crazy. But, but it happened though. So very nerve wracking too. So excited to do it. But also, just sitting there nervous and all too. But I think one of the favorite things about it was that after the fact, Jerry told Shane Russell, who had brought him down to our house and vouched for us, and told Jerry that we're his friends, which that meant a lot to us. That Jerry told Shane that he really had a wonderful time doing it. And we're, great podcasters and all too. So to get the blessing from the man himself, Mr. Memphis Wrestling, I felt like, we made it, Bob. We really did.
That's great. Wow. That's a real capper for everything. So your show comes out how often? Where can people find it? Give my listeners the nuts and bolts in case they haven't heard your show.
Once again, like you said, it's a Wrasslin Talk. It's WRASSILN because we're in the South. It's Wrasslin Talk with Mayor McCall. Available everywhere we get your podcast. Anchor, Spotify, Apple, Google, Pod Addict, Podbean. It's everywhere. I was releasing a show every 2 weeks, but probably since we're wrapping up, I'll just go ahead and release once a week, and we'll finish it on out and let the fans go ahead and hear the latest episodes, because I know a lot of people are ready to hear some of the big names we recorded and all. So no sense in hanging on to them longer than needed. So I'll just be doing once a week.
Now, I'm retired now. I was working when you and I first met. Now I'm a retired person, and I'm spending all my time doing this stuff on my 2 podcasts. I am spending, I will say, the time you have to put in to do these things is phenomenal. I feel like I still have a full-time job because you
do.
know me. I edit like crazy. I do all these other things, buy the music for the pie. It's just a lot of compiling and putting stuff together. My question for you is this: as another podcaster, man to man, did you ever expect that podcasting was this much work? Because it is a lot of work.
It's funny you brought that up. I was talking to a buddy a few weeks back, and I was explaining to him everything that goes into this. I mean, first of all, I've got to get a contact on some of the big names that we've tried to interview. First of all, I've got to get a contact on that guy. I've got to track that guy down. I've got to meet that guy. It's just beginning. I've got to win that guy over. I've got to talk him into doing an interview with me. I've got to make him feel comfortable. Everybody and their mama has a podcast. Why would he want to do a interview with John Mayer McCall and Willie and Foxy? So the convincing part of it starts. So if I'm lucky enough to get an interview or somebody says yes, then it's hours watching old footage, taking notes, doing research, being overly prepared, because we like to give the guests their flowers and respect. And hey, if you're a big wrestling legend and you agree to give me your time, then I need to respect it. I need to know everything I need to know. I need to be well prepared. Then it's, then the technical side of it, the uploading, the editing, all that kind of stuff, promoting it. Then it's just, it all starts over, finding your next guest. So yeah, it's definitely been exhausting. The last 3 years have been very, very tiresome. They really have.
It's probably a little easier for you than it was for me when I started at PWI, and I'll tell you why. Because when I came to Memphis in '91, it was still kayfabe, man. I mean, people were still holding the business, close to the vest. They weren't open, and nothing was an open secret then. And now, at least, I think the old timers have acquiesced to that fact, and the young guys are a little more open than the old timers were. Do you think that helped you at all in getting guests and getting the show put together?
Well, yeah, most definitely. A lot of it was networking. I was just, by the grace of, certain people like, Steve Kern helping me out, taking me under his wing and really believing in me and believing in the journey we're on and liking what we do to, introduce me to a lot of guys along the way. Then, you get lucky with some of those guys and they introduce you to some of their close friends in the business. So our philosophy has been, just doing the greatest job we can and by word of mouth and showing respect to these guys and honor them. So a lot of instances where phone calls are made, like, a guy did the show and makes a phone call and say, hey, will you do John's show? You'll have a good time doing it, and a lot of the older guys still like to talk about it. It kind of puts them back. I think my show at certain times, they really thank me afterwards and said I brought back a lot of memories, and they're happy when friends and family, when the show is released and everybody can hear about it. And just, our goal is so the world never forgets about some of these, especially these territory legends. They'll live on forever. People like myself and yourself keeps talking about them. They'll live on forever.
We're trying, right? We're all trying.
Right.
And you wonder too. I mean, here's the thing. When I started the show 3 years, 3 months ago, whatever it is, I was hoping that some younger people would listen and maybe learn stuff or be interested in learning stuff about the old time stuff. Because, like I said, I started watching it and understanding it way back in 1970. That's a long time ago. I just wonder if any young people are paying attention to the history of wrestling these days because it's changed so much. It's literally two different businesses from the time I started to now. Everything has changed like crazy. When I used to go to matches, they'd sell my tickets out of out of a cigar box. Now, if you have to mortgage your future to go to WrestleMania. It's an entirely different business now. So, what do you think? Did you think you educated some younger fans, or did you just please the older ones?
I would say a little bit of both. It's not rocket science to figure out what the demographic is for what we do and
Mhm.
the target audience and all. But yeah, I've got some feedback for some buddies along the way, like their younger kids or such that really surprised me with their age group that said they turned into a couple episodes of the podcast and enjoy it and learn something, and so that made me feel good. But no, the main demographic would be like the older audience that still craves their old school wrestling and still, longs for wrestling of yesterday. So,
Yeah, I hear that. And it's kinda nice though, because the beauty part about doing this and, I've talked about things like old Memphis and old Indianapolis and stuff like that. The nice part is you can point the young kids to this stuff on YouTube and other sources to get the old video and watch it for the first time. And I know I've got a couple of listeners that, "Yeah, that was great. I never saw that before." That's what I'm looking for. You and I, when we were younger, buying our $7 tickets to go to the wrestling and thought we were in the big time, right? We didn't you're looking up at those lights, you're going, "This is where I wanna be. This is the stuff." That's the feeling I've always tried to impart on the younger folks or even the older folks to get back to that vibe. And it's not easy to do, but, I think in many regards you've done that because you've never lost your enthusiasm for wrestling at all.
no, not at all. And I think in some ways the podcast has just scratched the surface and made me want to do a lot deeper dive into, Memphis and learn a lot more about the territory because you never become complacent. I mean, I just know a little bit about it. Definitely my favorite period in, wrestling history is old Memphis wrestling. Nothing better to me.
Oh, man, the luckiest thing about working at the magazines was getting those Memphis tapes back in the '90s, man. I was just '80s and '90s. I was just it's my favorite wrestling TV. The Channel 5 show is my favorite wrestling show of all time that was televised. Nothing comes close in terms of just the vibe of it and actually stand in that studio for one lucky day. I mean, good gosh, man. It took me back. It took me back to the vibe I had when I was 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. Memphis was wrestling for the fans first and foremost.
I know how much you love that too, spending that time with Eric Embry. So that was pretty cool. When I interviewed Eric Embry, I got to talk about your time in the locker room with him and just, that week
Yeah.
you spent in Memphis and just, and,
I would be shocked if he remembered that. Did he remember that?
he did. He did. It took him a minute, but, I refreshed his memory and he was like, yeah, I know who Bob Smith is. So yeah, he did. He definitely remembered you, Bob.
Well, I'll tell you what. But I had a nice long conversation with him and also with Mr. Jarrett, Jerry Jarrett.
Right.
And he explained what they were trying to do, how hard it was to compete at that point in time, with the WWF at that point getting bigger and bigger by the day and encroaching, they were playing the local arenas too, and you had to compete against that. And I learned so much in 5 days, whatever it was I spent there. It was crazy. It was crazy. I mean, but it was good. It was so good. I mean, I don't wanna sound like a gushing fanboy over Memphis wrestling, but nothing else had that flavor, especially with those announcers. Those announcers really brought it home. Do you agree with that?
I totally agree with that, and that's been part of the journey too. Getting to be good friends with Shane Russell, the son of the greatest, in our opinion, the greatest wrestling announcer to ever do it, Lance Russell. So getting to be, close with his son Shane and becoming friends, and Shane is just nothing but a chip off the old block. What a class act, a true gentleman, and he's helped us, big time along this journey. He's the one that brought Jerry Lawler to my house and all. I mean, that's pretty cool. When Shane Russell makes a call to Jerry the King Lawler and said, "Hey, how about doing an interview with a couple buddies?" That kind of changes the whole dynamic of it. So just to see them pull up that day and get out, it just felt so surreal. So yeah, thank you, Shane Russell, for everything you've done for us. What an awesome dude.
I've had 2 guests on my show that felt like I was talking to their dads. One was Shane, the other was Justin Race, Harley Race's son. And you forget that they're the sons because their memories are so vivid. Actually, I had a third to that, Paige Sutherland, who was Kurt Von Hess's daughter. You talk to them for a while, and they remember so many facts, figures, time frames, and everything like that. Your head spins. How did you keep all that in your cranium? Well, the fact is they loved the business as much as their fathers did.
Like you, I've had the privilege of having Shane and Justin on the show, and you're right.
Mhm.
I mean, they couldn't do it any better, could they, Bob? I mean, those
No.
guys are they carry on the legacy with pride and honor, and they're right there. They know their stuff. They know the stories. They know the fact. Like you said, it's almost like just having to be able to talk to that person through them almost. They're so well versed and know so much. It's incredible. Hats off to Justin and Shane.
I always tell this story about being up at the Albany, New York International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. It started 6 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever it is. And I'm standing there talking to Kayla Sparks, a local wrestler. We're just chatting, talking about Albany and where I'm from originally. And up walks Justin, goes, "How you guys doing?" And we talked to him for about 30, 35 minutes. And he had story after story after story. And we had question after question after question. And when he walked away, I looked at Kayla, she looked at me, and our jaws were agape because it was like he gave us so much information, so many vivid memories of his dad and all the life and times they had. And that was just chatting, just talking at
Right.
waiting for the ceremony to start. That stuff don't grow on trees anymore. And we need, like you said before, we need more people who are willing to express those old time things. I was up there in Albany and I talked to Johnny Rods, who was a big, well, I would call him a perennial here on the East Coast. And I'm going to go to Gleason's Gym soon and talk to him there. We need those older voices. We really do, because I don't want the earlier time period to be forgotten. It was too much fun. The wrestlers were too good. There's too much history.
Totally agree. Well said.
I still on a Tuesday night, I'm tired, I'm finished. I'll turn the TV on and I'm not going to watch the new networks. I'm looking at the Savoldi tape library YouTube for something. I'll type in some wrestler's name and find something. I'll just watch that for an hour. I think it's great. It's great. And you know what else is great? The WWE of all people have something on YouTube called the WWE Vault, and they have stuff going back to the 80s in the thing. It's where they put a lot of work. People are upset when the Peacock took off the tape library that they had. Now they moved a lot of things to the WWE Vault on YouTube, which is free. And you can see all this stuff dating back to the 1980s, and I think that's great. I know the 70s aren't there yet, and they may not be there because I don't think they think it's worth it, but any old video we can get is a big thing with me.
Absolutely. Nothing wrong with pulling up an old Don Morocco video up from time to time. Yeah, check out the vault. A lot of cool stuff on there,
Yeah, it was amazing. Like, you can watch 3 hours of Bam Bam Bigelow matches all in a
Incredible.
row. I mean, and house show matches. I hate to be a commercial for the WWE. They don't need the money, but that thing is really good for old timer fans like us.
Absolutely. It is.
So, so you watching the new stuff at all?
No, I don't watch anything new. I couldn't really.
Nothing.
Nothing really. No. I might tune into WrestleMania or something to check it out just because it's WrestleMania or something. But no, I don't typically watch a lot of new wrestling. I couldn't tell you much about it.
I keep looking at the WWE stuff out of a sense of lifetime duty. I've been watching this stuff since 1970, and I worked for the magazines. And even when all the years I left the magazine, I kept watching the TV. I couldn't get out of the habit of it. Now it's
Right.
just part of what I do, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent.
Right.
Do I stare at it all the time, like when it's on for 3.5 hours? No, but I keep one eye on it all the time, just in case they do something that's pleasing. You know what? The athletes are great. The athletes are superb. It's the presentation I think you and I have a problem with.
Oh yeah, yeah. You can't take anything away from the performers. I mean, the performers are probably in a lot of ways more talented than some of the old school performers. But for us, Bob, old school is just where it's at. There's no, like you said, there's no flavor like it.
When I was growing up, you could sell out an arena with 2 guys who never left their feet. Never left their feet. They would get in there and fight, but they would never leave their feet, not even once. I'm talking the old here's 1971 in Los Angeles, Fred Blassie, John Tolis, the revenge match at a Coliseum outside, and they never left their feet. You know what I'm saying? It was different. They told the
Right.
story of the feud so well going into it that they set a Los Angeles record all time at that time period. Yes, you have to know how to tell a story, but you also have to, and I think this is what modern wrestling tends not to do well. The fans crave a payoff. They crave a finish, and they don't always finish these feuds anymore, which drives me crazy.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. That's one of probably some of the reason I lost, interest in it. Because from time to time, I try to give it another chance, but it's not like the wrestling of the past that I really love.
If you can go back in time, in the Memphis show, right? That was your favorite show too. What are some of your favorite moments? Everybody talks about the, empty arena match with Funk and Jerry Lawler. What are your all-time favorite matches that you've seen?
Man, and that's funny you would say that because, I'll be 45 next month. So the height of my Saturday mornings were, seeing, like PG-13, Jerry Lawler, Jeff Jarrett, Danny Davis. Like you said, with the YouTube and all the old footage and all, I get to travel back in time and, see a lot of the Fabulous Ones matches. I think it'd probably been cool to be there for the Fabulous Ones against the Moon Dogs or against the Sheep Herders, and like Jerry Lawler against Jimmy Valiant, hair versus hair, and the Coliseum goes into a riot, and a lot of damage is done that night. Seeing the pop Jackie Fargo could get at the Mid-South Coliseum, something nostalgic like that. Or actually even seeing, Jerry Lawler in his heyday when the Coliseum held 11,005, but if the fire marshal didn't stick their nose in business that night, they could, get about 11,900 or something in there. So just seeing some of those just packed out houses and seeing the emotions from, the fans back when they call it back when Memphis, when wrestling was real, when people still believed on Saturday mornings, when you run the algorithms and the statistics today, it's like, unbelievable amount of TVs watching that every Saturday morning. What a percent of the city would be at the Coliseum on Monday nights. There will never be anything like it again.
I am firmly of the opinion that the greatest angle ever on a national level was Andy Kaufman and Jerry Lawler, because it went into the national media all over the country, after those pile drivers, and everybody bought it. Everybody bought it. He went to the hospital, the fans were upset, and they wrote it like a news story. Nobody made fun of that. When they carted him out of that, Mid-South Coliseum on a stretch, nobody was making fun in the news, organizations. They were reporting it like he hurt him. They did it, man. To me, that's the sign of what wrestling should be. You fooled them all. And I think, and like Eddie Marlin once said, did we fool them? Right? He said that to me once. And it's like, I think that makes the all-time greatest feud on a national level to me. What do you think? I'm probably wrong, but that's just the way I feel about it.
No, absolutely not. I mean, because that feud hits on so many fronts and levels. First of all, let's back up a little bit. That could be argued the greatest moment in sports entertainment before there was sports entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
And look at the kayfabe involved in that. I mean, Andy's old parents were kayfabe, the whole family. I mean, Lawler met Andy's family, years later. And at first it wasn't such a warm welcome because they really thought Andy and Jerry hated each other, and that Jerry was really out to hurt and, kill their son, but it wasn't like that at all. They had worked the families, they'd worked the fans, they'd worked the whole city, they'd worked the whole nation. You can't give a better example of kayfabe than that. To your point, the Memphis Commercial Appeals writing a story, about it and all like that. And they didn't, not one person even suspected it was a work or an angle,
Well, the thing that I love best about it, Kaufman worked the hospital too.
Yes,
he wasn't
yes.
hurt, but they admitted him for real. Now think
Right.
about that for a minute. They had the doctors look at him, and he still got admitted. How good is that?
Right.
I just think it's fantastic. Absolutely and then you followed up with the Letterman show? Are you kidding me?
Right.
Right?
Incredible. It really was,
Yeah, we'll never see anything like that again. Now you got the WWE guys lighting each other on fire in the ring, and nobody even says boo because they've flung open the
Right.
doors too wide, and the stuff got too dumb. It's just the way it is.
I agree.
Here you are. You're gonna finish with a big bang on your podcast. You're hale and hearty. You're out again. You're looking good. You got a smile on your face, which I like to see. What's next? What's coming up for you? I mean, you've been a very lucky guy. You always talk fondly of your wife, and you got your hero like Willie as your partner on the podcast. As you wrap it up, what's your feeling about? I think what you told me in private was kind of like, well, we did it. We've done what we wanted to do. We've interviewed everybody we wanted to interview. It's got to be a good feeling to put an exclamation point on your show like that.
It really does. I mean, and thank you from your support, and early on. I mean, I did your show for the first time very early on in my podcasting career, but, I got your attention, and that was cool by some of the guests I have. And, you and I got to know each other through the graces of social media and became friends. And, you understood and liked the mission and journey I was on. So, yeah, I mean, I set out to interview some of the top Memphis wrestling legends to ever walk the planet, and unfortunately I didn't get to interview some that are passed on and all, or due to health reasons, but I covered some of the biggest names ever to come through Memphis wrestling, and I'm very happy where the journey ended. I'm very blessed. And like you said too, I'm very lucky to have Willie and, Melissa, by my side, two of the best. We got the Freeburg rule in effect, the three of us. So, that's couldn't ask for a better team.
I'll tell you something else for my listeners. Go on my website, which is outdatedwrestlinghour.buzzsprout.com, and find the episodes where he guessed the first time. And the second one we did was one of the best episodes we've ever done. That was the one we really got into the nitty-gritty of your favorite wrestling moments in Memphis history. And that was a really good educational show. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I had so much fun doing it. Yeah, I've been on, we've talked about some of the greatest matches and feuds of Memphis. We've talked about the greatest superstars of Memphis, and what better fitting way for me to, wind down and, speak to you on the way out. So thank you for all your, your help and support along the way. It's been a pleasure and honor.
Listen, it's been nothing but fun for me, getting to know you and everybody down there. And I long to go back to Memphis. I just need a reason to do it, I love Beale Street. I love the clubs there. I love the blues scene. You know how I am. I'm very romantic about Memphis. And the fact that I got to come back in a non-wrestling way and play the BB King Club opening for Coco Taylor about 4 years after I did the original interview there. I've never had a bad moment in Memphis. And I got to see the Peabody Ducks. You know about them, right?
Oh, of course. The Duck Master walking the ducks, and yeah, a Memphis tradition.
Yeah, it's awesome. We laugh like hyenas. We found out about it when we were there. And everybody's saying, you're not from right here. You're go see the Peabody Ducks. I said, what? What are you talking about? Well, there's this beautiful old hotel where about 10 o'clock in the morning every day, the ducks come out of an elevator and they jump in the little pond they have. And I went, you got to be kidding. So we went. We had nothing to do that next morning, so we went, and it was hilarious. It was just great. That's what gives a city a flavor,
Right. I totally couldn't agree more, Bob.
And but I am upset that Bunton's is not open anymore. Lawler in '91, he took me to Bunton's Soul Food Kitchen, and I can't remember if it was in Memphis or West Memphis, Arkansas. I can't remember which, but it's the first time I ever ate fried okra and real soul food. And he said, how's the food? I said, oh my God. It was the best lunch I ever had in my life.
Hey, I tell you what, just you get to Memphis and you got some friends down here, and me and Melissa and Willie, and I tell you what, we'll find you some good soul food to eat, Bob. We won't let you down. There's still some good places down here kicking. You'll enjoy yourself.
There is? Well, I've been to the Rendezvous too. Rendezvous was excellent. I love the Rendezvous. That was great. I learned about them from a John Hyatt song. He says, get a decent meal down at the Rendezvous. So then I asked somebody, what did that mean? He goes, oh, no, there's a restaurant right in the middle of town. I said, all right, we'll go. And we did. It was great. You're going out with a bang, sir. This is wonderful. I want to point people toward your podcast. Like you said, it's available everywhere podcasts are available. And if you want to hear the real legends from Memphis wrestling, that's the source right now. I mean, get out there and hear it, because it's the price is right, and you'll learn stuff you haven't heard before.
So, well said. Check it out. Wrestling Talk with Mayor McCall. We'd be glad to have you.
And like I'm trying to get people to listen to the show. Price is right. It's free. Just all we need is your time. Right?
Hey, spin the wheel, make a deal, baby. Check out Wrestling Talk with Mayor McCall.
There you go. Well, it's good to see you. I don't know what to say other than I wanna thank you too. We were rookies when we first talked, and now we're elder statesmen, as it were, in the podcast world, and I wanna thank you because you helped me along the way too, and the success of this show has far exceeded anything I thought it was gonna do. So, again, to have guests like you on, it's been a privilege. You better not be a stranger from this point. I'm gonna be awfully upset.
No, the feeling is mutual, and no, we'll always be in touch, Bob. I have so much love and respect for you, and people don't realize what a big deal you are because you act so humble and modest, though. But no, you're a bad dude in your time, and you still are, man. We appreciate all the things, all your contributions.
I cannot believe all these decades later, the people who remember those magazines, it just knocks me out. If I knew that people were gonna react to those magazines like I never would have left the business, I swear to God. I
Right.
would have stuck with it somehow, some way. I did stick with it for, like, another 10 years doing freelance, but I should have stuck with it. I didn't know that the name meant anything or that anybody acknowledged anything. Because my company was leaving town, I couldn't stay with them, so I didn't really feel like, throwing resumes around. I found a job in another field, but, I should've stuck with it. Maybe I'm really stupid. I started thinking I was a stupid younger man because, I was the first ECW TV announcer, and I quit because I didn't think I was good, and I see Todd Gordon 30 years later, he goes, "No, you were fine." So so
We don't know.
I
We don't know why you quit, Bob. You're doing an excellent job. You're the one that walked off the job. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's true. Maybe I went and made a bunch of records with people like Duke Robillard and big blues stars and played with BB King a few times, and, not many people could say they did that either, so
no, there was a plan in motion that you definitely followed, and I think everything turned out exactly like it was supposed to.
I just worked my ass off, that's all. That's the key to I've always outworked the next 3 guys standing next to me. That's really been the key to my whole life. I just been a hard worker.
Right, that you are indeed.
But it hasn't been hard work getting to know you. It's been a pure pleasure, and John Mayor McCall, Wrasslin Talk with an R, Wrasslin Talk with Mayor McCall. Type it in your browser. Just type in Mayor McCall. Just type in your name. You have a one of a kind name. Type in Mayor McCall in your browser, and all kinds of podcast apps will pop up. Take advantage of the most recent shows and the ones coming up. You will hear some of the biggest stars in the history of Memphis wrestling, and it couldn't happen to a nicer guy than John McCall. John, thanks for being here, man.
My honor and pleasure, Bob. Thank you, sir.
Well, another outdated wrestling hour is in the books. Vamoose, Afterlife Kids, Gone, Split, Departed. We're finished. We hope you enjoyed the show. One more thank you to the mayor, John McCall, down near Memphis. Did a great job. As always, I'm happy to have made as many friends as I have over the past 4 years or so that I've been doing this thing, and you can count John as one of them. I want to get down to Memphis sometime again. I really do. I love Memphis. From the club scene there to the sports to everything else, I am a big fan of Memphis. I'm also a big fan of all you listeners out there, and if you want to find our old shows, they're at outdatedwrestlinghour.buzzsprout.com. Every single episode is there. You just click the button and listen if you'd like. We're also on every podcast app I can think of. That and our sister podcast, the Outdated Entertainment Hour, both of which are productions of Bob Smith Podcasts. Also on that website, you can learn all about the Outdated Wrestling Hour fan club, or for a tiny little fee, you can help perpetuate the ongoing adventures of not only this show, but our sister show, the Outdated Entertainment Hour. And we have Craig Peters coming back to that show, the former editor-in-chief of Pro Wrestling Illustrated. We're going to talk about one of your favorite comedy magazines from years gone by. People our age are really going to enjoy this one because you might know what I'm talking about. Find me on Facebook. I'm the only Bob Smith, Singing with BB King. Look for me as either Outdated Bob or Bob Smith on everything else, every single other social media platform. That's all I can think of right now. My thoughts are down with Memphis, Beale Street. Wonderful times I had there. Not only in wrestling, going down and spending a week there, but spending about 4 days there performing with my band on Beale Street at the BB King Blues Club. What a wonderful memory. Opened for the great Coco Taylor. It was just a blast. I'll never, ever forget it. And I'll never forget you guys either for listening to every episode of the Outdated Wrestling Hour. Wherever you listen, if there's a subscribe button or a like button, will you please click it? It really does help. And I want to keep this thing going as long as I can. and I hope you'll be along for the ride. So that's it. And as we say at the end of every episode, like Ringo Starr says, peace and love, brothers and sisters, peace and love.